Good morning. It's Saturday, the 2nd of February. I'm noticing that I'm wearing often this Mr. Bungle yellow shirt in these recordings, which is a shirt that I sleep in quite quite often. So that's yeah, not getting dressed up for these, just wearing my pajamas. It's been a really good morning of writing. About 3 hours or more that I've spent writing this morning, and most of that time was planning what the second monologue was going to be, and I'm really happy that I've got a really nice handle on what it is and what it contains. Um, it's exactly what I wanted in terms of what the content for this should be in comparison to monologue one and monologue three, and there's different layers that I'm going for. Pardon me. So it's yeah, and you know what? It was nice to have a bit of a blank canvas, even though I had an emotional goal that I was going for, and you know, a vague sense of content. It really didn't have much else other than that. And it was nice just to sit down and actually went through books that I had in my writing space, and just to look through and get ideas. And it's funny the things that you've got in the back of your mind that you are surprised when you look back at other sources of material that you've got. You realize it's exactly what you want to talk about right now, and that happened this morning. And that the first part of this monologue, uh, I wanted it to start on a train platform, which is not out of the ordinary for my interest. I like the train, and it's been a part of my life in different ways. Um, but what was interesting is when I went onto a particular catalogue of photos that I've got saved um, on trains, and I actually wanted to find. I didn't look at the catalogue to start with. I found a photo of a train online, and I thought I'll save that into the catalogue. And then when I looked at the catalogue, the very first photo I had saved was an even more perfect photo of a train station, even better than the one I just found. And I thought, how funny! I didn't even know that I was thinking about trains and train stations back when I started to put it together for the first version of Beach Surgery, but I was, and it was there, and it helped to inform some of the starting texts that I wanted to put into the piece. So that was a nice. It was nice to see it all connect, and to re-examine parts of your own memory and own interests that start to come back in that way. So what I did was a really good session of planning. I really like. It's a new type of planning for me where and I've talked about it a bit in the past, but I identify the type of components that I want a particular passage of writing to contain. So, say over a 10,000 word, say, chapter or monologue, as I'm thinking of them as, I might think, what sort of components do I want to include in here? I might want to have elements of psychogeography, elements of philosophy, elements of memory, elements of narrative, elements describing technology or music, and there's just all these little building blocks. These Lego style blocks is how I think of them, and I just put down all the sort of components that I think would fit into that passage of writing to hit all the pieces of content that I want to have covered, and then I just arrange them in a way that is suitable. So I might start with narrative, talk about music, talk about psychogeography, go back to the narrative, talk about technology, and it's just a bundle of components that all link up in that way. And I find that writing according to that schedule of components, it allows less micro planning like I was doing on the previous iteration of this book, where I would have a scene and then I would have micro scenes. So like would have an arc that I knew I wanted to cover, and I think I'll slice that up into different components, and then slice up that into smaller components. So you are writing in those small parts that will come to form the bigger part. But what I feel I'm doing now is I'm in part I'm doing a similar thing where I know the arc, and then I am slicing, but rather than planning every detail of those slices, I've just got a general sense of content that I want to cover, and then I just start writing. So what I did this morning after I finished the planning, I thought rather than just concluding on the planning, you've got to write now. Like, don't leave the writing for another day or spend more time planning. You've got to start writing, because if you don't write every day, it won't get finished. And planning, I'm deciding these days doesn't count as writing. Planning's great, but you've got to write. The process has to be put on the page. So after I did about 2 hours of planning, I did about an hour of writing. I finished the first component of this monologue. I really like it. It's consistent with the voice that I wanted to carry over, but it's also got its own feel, and it's going to be, it's now starting me on. It's starting me on the journey that I need to go on with this next monologue, so that tomorrow, when I sit down to do some more writing, it's already started, and it's just a matter of continuing that going. So that was excellent. Very happy with that. Very happy with the progress. Happy with some of the structural ideas I've got for this and the following monologue, and the way that they're all going to wrap up together as things proceed on through the book. Yeah, it's good. And just the general consistency and routine and confidence that I've got in writing this is great. And in fact, looking back this morning at the first iteration of Beach Surgery, it actually made I could see so many holes in the narrative and in the general approach, because I was trying to write in a style that I'd never really written in before, and maybe it could be fine. Like, it could certainly be reworked, and it would probably be a fine book. But the way I'm doing it now, and this particular voice, I know it's always easy to say what you're doing now is better than what you were doing back then, but it just has an authenticity to it that, for sure, I'm going to have to be careful to not, have holes in the way that I can now see those which had opened up in the first version of the book I did. But I think the way I'm doing it now just has a lot more fail-safe in terms of, some of those holes came up because of the sort of stylistic narrative tools that I was trying to use, and that's just not going to be a problem with this one. So yeah, keep track and don't get too overconfident, but it's all feeling good at the moment. So I'll finish there, sign off. It's a lovely Saturday. I'm going to go for a nice walk with my dog now, and come back and enjoy some family time. So have a nice day, and I'll see you tomorrow.